Welcome back and welcome to another book versus movie video. As you'll have seen from the thumbnail, we are going to be talking about How to Keep a Secret by Sophie Kinsella, which was recently made into a movie. But did the movie live up to my much beloved Sophie Kinsella novel? Let's see. So I did make some notes whilst watching the movie, and as always, I understand that when a book gets developed into a novel, the writer sells the rights and therefore the movie makers can basically change anything they want to. But I love comparing the novel to the movie, which is why I often, as is the case of Can You Keep a Secret, reread the novel before watching the movie so that I can have the action and the dialogue and the storyline fresh in my mind, ready to make the comparisons and then bring them to you here. This one, I have to say, was not a disappointment, but a bit like the Shopaholic series books when the first 2.5 of those were made into a movie, which I have made a video about. I'll leave it linked up here for you. This movie is quite different in some ways than the book. So the first major difference, just like the Shopaholic movie, is that this one is set in the US, not the UK. We have scenes in New York and scenes in Chicago, and so that brings some interesting differences because obviously the book is set in and around London, and she flies from London to Glasgow rather than New York to Chicago. Quite a different length of flight, which makes the sort of opening scenes of the book and the movie not slightly less believable, but you can believe that you might kind of get a little worse for wear on alcohol before getting on a flight from Glasgow to London, and then spend that, what is an hour basically, in the sky pouring your heart out and telling some truths. But I'm not sure whether you could do that for the full length of a flight from Chicago to New York. So I was a little more dubious about the fact that she spent the entire flight doing that, but I'm fine with it. I have to say, the casting for this movie was really, really good. Particularly the casting of Connor. Connor in the movie is, well, in the book, Connor is Emma's boyfriend at the beginning of the book, and in the casting of his character in the movie is basically just what appears in my head, and he plays Connor so well. So if you're a fan of the fool that Connor is, you're going to love him in this movie. But my favourite piece of casting was definitely Laverne Cox as Emma's boss. That is just inspired, that casting right there. In the book, Emma's boss is just kind of a run-of-the-mill, bit of an arsehole guy, but Laverne Cox as Emma's boss in the film just brings a whole extra dimension to that character. Just the attitude and the sassiness and the kind of bitchiness as well. But then we have some more kind of sweet moments between the two of them. Not sweet moments, but some more sort of emotional moments, and those just work so well. So bravo on the casting of this movie. That is a big change, obviously, from the book to the film. Well, not a big change, but a big character change, but I believe for the better, for sure. I would say in terms of the dialogue and the action, aside from the fact that we've moved it to another country, most of the dialogue and the action is pretty much word for word. Having read the book so close to watching the film, you know, just a few days apart, I can say that a lot of the writing from the book, a lot of Sophie Kinsella's witty one-liners and back and forth moments, as well as the kind of physical comedy she wrote in the book, just gets played out as it is in the book on the big screen. And I really, really like that because I love Sophie Kinsella's sense of humour. I was watching carefully to see if there were any kind of UK specific jokes that had been adapted to more US specific jokes, but what has happened is that it's been modernized. So this book came out, should have found this out, I read it when it first came out and then reread it. So this one came out 2004. This is the US edition, and the movie came out the end of 2019. So we needed a 15-year update, and some of the stuff has been updated, some of it's modernized. We have the term millennials used in it, which obviously didn't exist when we had the book, and things have been updated in that sense, but I didn't notice specifically any kind of UK jokes that had been adapted to be more US friendly, or like a more US sense of humour than a UK sense of humour, or a more New York sense of humour. But yeah, I was kind of looking for that, but I didn't find it. One of the things that has been really updated in a really good way is a discussion that Emma and her boss have over consent in workplace relationships, which I think wasn't as much at the forefront in 2004 when the book was written as it is now. There's a very frank discussion about, did you feel pressured into this relationship because you work together? Was there any understanding of, you will get a promotion if you sleep with me? Which I think is an important discussion to have, and you know, is something that people have to sort of sign off on these days more so, and that's one of the ways that it's definitely been modernized. And I think that that discussion kind of just took that scene in the film and that part of the film to a whole other level than it might have been in the book first published in 2004. I really, the other thing that I really spotted that was like modernized was they mentioned Fire Festival, which I thought was interesting, and I can totally see that coming up in the world of the novel. If it was out today, it's something that like Emma would have been interested in. It's something that the characters would have talked about. And so I like the fact that they kind of took the essence of the characters, the essence of the writing, and the kind of like general feeling of the book, and put that across in some of the things that it talks about in the movie. But yeah, I would say that in general, the feeling of the book and the feeling of the movie are very similar. I will say, if you are a fan of the book, yes, I really think you'll be a fan of the movie. Just be prepared for it to be set in the US, not the UK. Also, I think that the overall feeling of the movie was slightly more, it feels more like a romantic movie, whereas this is very much more of a rom-com. And I think that the movie's a little more kind of racier than the book is. Again, that might be because of the time and the fact that we're now in 2019. Well, the film's in 2019, the book's in 2004. We're a lot more open in the language that we use now than we were then, and a lot more aware of consent and things than we were then. But I do think that the film's just like next level racier. So the language used is slightly, there's more language used. We get to kind of see some of the sex scenes, whereas it's kind of, it leads up to sex in the book, and then we kind of pan away to the next morning, or we pan away to getting the glass of water afterwards. But I think that that was definitely a good thing, and kind of made the movie slightly different from the book in a way of, well, I've read the book, do I need to watch the movie? So yeah, those are kind of the main differences that I found. But I would say that yes, the feeling of the book is encapsulated in the feeling of the movie. I think making the change from the UK to the US wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't detrimental to the storyline, the dialogue, the characters. The storyline, the dialogue, the characters are all there. They're all the same, apart from that casting change with Emma's boss. Just awesome casting. I love that. I'm here for it. And that discussion about consent, more discussion about sex, and that kind of updated to be not 2004, but talking about millennials and Fire Festival and the plane being what plane rides are today. So there you have it. Let me know in the comments, as always, if there are any other book to movie adaptations you would like me to cover and discuss here. Always happy. I do have a couple of others in the pipeline, so I'm very excited to bring those to you. Speaking of which, you're going to want to subscribe so that those land right in your subscription feed. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you with another video soon. Bye.